We're so honored to have Tim Hassinger, the CEO of Dow AgroSciences, with us today to close us out. Dow AgroSciences has been right at the very front of helping AgriNovus get off the ground. And even before AgriNovus was launched, Dow AgroSciences has been right at the center of many of the CICP initiatives. In fact, being right at the front of the BioCrossroads Life Sciences initiative as it got started many years ago. And it's because of Tim's leadership and some of the executives that came before him that there was a really clear identification of this convergence, this intersection, and this collision between the life sciences and food and ag, and what we're talking about here today is the ag biosciences. So we owe a deep amount of gratitude and thanks to Tim and, again, the people throughout the Dow AgroSciences organization for their vision and their leadership and their ability to really bring a lot of people and a lot of leaders together around the very things that we're talking about here today. So as I said earlier, Tim is currently president and CEO of the company, but he's also a lifer. Tim joined the Dow Chemical Company in 1984 as a sales trainee in Midland, Michigan. You can read more in the program about all of the different roles that he has played across the company and its many different structures and very different business entities. But needless to say, he knows the business inside and out. And it's great to have him with us to really, I think, sort of close us out with some remarks about the future of innovation, maybe not only for his company and for the plant sciences sector that they are so competitive and dominating in, but I think also for the state of Indiana, because as you've heard, they are home here. We are glad they are home here, and we're just really excited, Tim, to have you come and close us out. So please join me in welcoming Tim Hassinger to the stage.
Okay, well, I believe we've just found a new goal for a speaker. Can I continue the group here to be a Twitter trender? I have to say that was never in any of my goals I'd ever had before. What we've heard this afternoon is a real focus on talent and entrepreneurship and how that will contribute and really are keys to an innovative environment. But I want to propose a concept to add to this. The visions and the goals that I've seen today around trying to build this area as a sector in agriculture, I believe global mindset is a concept that we've got to really bring forward. And I have to share, many years ago, I had the responsibility of running our insecticide business, and I had a humbling experience in this, knowing that and recognizing now that just how customer needs can vary so much around the globe. We were launching a new product, and we were having literally no commercial success in Africa. So I went to Africa with the intent of going out to the countryside and to understand why our product wasn't being used. And the crop that it was targeted on was cotton. And I had a chance to go out there, met with the folks there, this little small community. When we got to the countryside, and the person that clearly was the leader of this small community took me into the field, and everything that I thought and had assumed was correct from the product fit this market extremely well. I could not figure out why they would not use it. And it wasn't long after he pointed, and he spoke in Afrikaans, and we had a translator there that spoke Afrikaans to French, and then someone who would take French to English. And he took me over to an area where there were a group of chickens and a few goats, and he pointed to the bucket. And I still couldn't pick up what he was referring to. As it turns out, through the translation that came back to me, our product in the jug looked just like goat's milk. And he didn't use our product because, for a very valid reason, he was concerned the children would not understand what it is and they could potentially drink our product. You know, that's an incredibly valid customer need that I could have spent weeks sitting in an Indianapolis conference room and never come up with the answer. of what the real problem was there. So when I look at my own leadership team, and there's 10 of us that, as a senior leadership team, that have overall responsibility, I don't think it's by coincidence that the regions of the world where I don't have representation on my leadership team are the areas that we have the lowest market share. And just having that perspective and that background of your knowledge of the culture and of the region is truly critical. So fostering a global mindset, I do believe, is critical to what we're trying to achieve here. Now, in the area of innovation, here's a picture of where innovation has fallen short. And anybody that grew up walking soybeans has a true appreciation of what this is. But in case of where actually hand weeding is occurring, and this is not more than just a few years old as a picture, truly makes the point. We've also brought up social media. And think of what social media can do to innovation. The gentleman just mentioned GMOs, and it's a great example of that. The one I was going to bring up is there was a recent story of children's juices that contained dihydrogen monoxide, a colorless killer, as it was described. As we found out later, they also call that water. We put together a program in Dow AgroSciences and exposed it to our entire employee base. And we have about 1,500 employees on our Indianapolis site. And we called it Grow the Conversation. And we brought in folks that could speak with in-depth knowledge of certain topics related to our industry. And we set it up where there were different sessions and they could pick and choose which ones they wanted to go to, and then we would come back together as a full group. We had over 500 people show up for this. Just voluntary, take a couple hours out of your day and come to this. And the acceptance way exceeded my expectations. So you start to dig in why. Why were our employees so interested in this? And as it turns out, one of the real drivers is exactly what was mentioned by the panel that just was up here. It was to help me tell the story. The number one thing I heard was Aunt Betty, who comes to Thanksgiving, is not a pleasant person at Thanksgiving. She complains about GMOs, claims organic is the only way to do it, and our employee believes in the technology, believes what we're doing, but has a hard time telling the story. And so we have dedicated a lot of resources that we never thought of or ever focused on before is around helping our employees tell the story. Because innovation and the use of technology, and I love telling this example or giving this example, is we tend to always think about producing more. But it's also a tremendous way to think of how we manage risk. And I just give you one example. In 1988 was a very bad drought throughout the Midwest, including Indiana. And 2012 arguably was even a worse drought. But the yield, corn yield in 1988 was 85 bushels per acre. And in 2012, it was 122 bushels. Now, both of those were yields that were well below what a farmer would expect and hope. But given the environmental condition, that was a 43% increase. Now, not a statistical or scientific comparison, but truly a directional one to say how much technology has helped. Innovation really creates and allows what our vision is. I did grow up on a farm, and I can remember as a kid, with growing corn in our farm in Illinois, that 150 bushels was always the vision. Just to put this in perspective, I called my brother about a month ago. He was about halfway through the harvest. I said, "How's it going?" He said, "I'm pretty disappointed. It's not what I'd hoped." "Oh, really? What are you getting?" "We're 240 bushels." I said, "You seriously are going to waste my time complaining about 240 bushels?" And he said, "Yeah, we'll move on to the next topic." The 9 billion by 2050. And this just shows a picture of Shanghai, China, which many people would argue as the busiest city in the world. And I happen to have the opportunity to actually call this home for a few years. And I give you a perspective of what 9 billion people may feel like is My wife and I, one weekend while we lived in Shanghai, went to a Starbucks, and it was packed, as often they are in China. And we saw 2 seats open up, and so we grabbed them real quickly. Got it, sat down with our coffee, but we made a mistake. We left a space about 6 inches wide between her and I. And sure enough, someone sits, wedges in between us, gets his cell phone out, starts talking, and lights up a cigarette. I leaned over my wife and I said, I don't think I'm ready for the 9 billion yet, okay? And so it gives us a sense of, obviously we are rapidly growing as a society. 83 million people joined us on the planet, additional in 2016. In other words, more than in Indianapolis every week, just to put that in perspective for you. Now, one topic around innovation that has come is, I've had the opportunity this year to be quoted on Dr. Oz and to participate in a Senate Judiciary hearing. So definitely innovation is on a broad group of people's mind. But the whole message around the Senate hearing was around a concern that ag consolidation could potentially reduce innovation. As being involved directly with the Dow-DuPont merger that's coming forward, that's about increasing innovation. And quite frankly, if it wasn't, we wouldn't do the deal. That's the foundation of our business today. That'll be the foundation of our business going forward. Now, the ag industry shares a common vision. A few weeks ago, I attended the World Food Prize in Des Moines, Iowa. And at the dinner that evening, we had assigned seating by table, and I sat down at the table, and it happened to be a gentleman I've never seen before, and introduced myself, and he gave me his business card, and finds out he had nothing to do with the ag industry. First exposure to the ag industry. This was a technology company, primarily that had focused on the pharmaceutical business. But his feedback to me I thought was quite interesting. He said, I've spent a couple days here listening to all of you talk in this industry. This industry's unique. And what he thought made it unique was that we were focused on a common vision as an industry. And I think that's critical as we think about what we're trying to do in terms of addressing the 9 billion by 2050. But all of the technology, et cetera, there's many different ways to go about doing it. But the fact that we're focused on a common vision is extremely important. The picture here is a picture of the Dow AgroSciences facility, specifically the research center. We currently are a company, and we will be in the future, one that's focused on producing innovations in crop protection and biotech. And happy to say, as part of the merger and going into the new company, Indianapolis will be one of the 2 global business centers that will be part of the new company. Now, we have challenges as we think of the innovation story that's been discussed today. And 3 that I just want to spend a few minutes on is we are in a down market, and it impacts a lot of the things that we've talked about. There's an increased time and money related to bringing innovation. And the 3rd one is the fact that we need all parts of the business to innovate. Here's a slide that just shows for the crop protection and seed business, the year-over-year change in percent of the market. And you can see at this point right here, in 2015, it was nearly down 10% versus the prior year, and it's estimated in 2016 it'll be down another 6 to 7%. That means over $15 billion has come out of this industry. That's more than 2 Dow AgroSciences, just to put that in perspective. And U.S. farm income is estimated to be down roughly 43% from a high of 2013. So it is a down market. We also have the fact that innovation is costing more and taking more time. Here's an industry survey of all of the providers for crop protection products. And from the point of innovation to actual commercialization, you can see that the cost here has estimated at $286 million per molecule, and that's increased 55% from 2000. In many ways, even more importantly or more impactful is the time has now gone up to over 11 years before that product can hit the market. And actually, that's not even truly characteristic, because we're now in an environment where the real registration doesn't occur until the last lawsuit is won. So this time frame is even extending further out. That is having an impact on innovation. And you say, well, what is it? The hurdle rate goes up. You can't afford a medium-sized innovation when it's costing $286 million. You got to go, if I can use a baseball term, the 3-run homer, or you can't afford it. That has an impact. We need innovation beyond just the R&D. And maybe it's just the industry that we're in, but we often fall victim when we think of innovation. We think R&D and we think specifically discovery pipeline. But innovation can come throughout the entire organization and really truly needs to. We just had an example of where a commercial person redesigned one of our packaging concepts and ended up getting a patent for this. A story that I love telling within our organization to really bring the point across how important innovation is across the entire organization. But we're at a time right now where in a down market, job loss has been prevalent. There's been a lot of announcements of downsizing because of challenges from a market standpoint. We're currently in and on the edge of additional ag consolidation. And what tends to come with an ag consolidation announcement is the number of synergies that will be attached to that merger. And of course, synergies does include job loss. So the need to drive for productivity and growth is a challenge in this environment. And I'll just share what we've done and where our focus has been. This slide speaks to. We put a heavy focus on trying to drive agility, clarity, and speed. And I had one recent employee here, and he put his arms up, and in the most passionate way, he said, "Tim, you give me clarity, and I'll give you speed." And I said, well, I appreciate the alignment, but you could maybe lower the drama here a little bit. But you know what's interesting about our focus on this? We did a survey 2 years ago, and we just did exactly the same survey to compare here roughly a month ago. One of the outcomes is that our organization became more assertive. If you want to say a little more edge than we had before. And I thought what was fascinating is, you know what group really liked that? It was our younger employees. And we became, in my mind, a more attractive company for our younger employees by the focus in these 3 areas. And I see that as very positive. Now, there's a buzz towards innovation. And I'm going to give you what I think is one of the interesting intangibles to our company for innovation. We, like every organization, put together different kinds of initiative programs for employee engagement, employee motivation. There is nothing in Dow AgroSciences that will create more positive feeling and help with retention than an organization that is viewed as having a tremendous pipeline of innovations coming, and it gives a feeling of positive towards the future. It helps the feeling and the retention with our customers in terms of they want to stay with us and grow with us, and it helps in terms from an employee standpoint. It's a powerful, powerful retention tool for us. Now, collaboration is not just from our Indianapolis site. This is a map around the globe of the different collaborations we have from a discovery standpoint. These are not contract labs. These are truly partners. We believe there are good ideas everywhere. And what I want to point out here is one of the things that we believe has been very helpful for us is how we structure it. It's just not who we work with, but it's how we structure it. And my point is what we'll put together is a research team, and then we will also put together a leadership team and try to make sure we match up peer to peer so that when conflicts do occur, the right people are involved. We have this structure, and we're working with universities such as Purdue. We're working with companies throughout the world on this, but it's not always with ag companies. And IBRI is a great example where we're working with Roche and Lilly here locally. I had an opportunity to see a presentation by a person that truly is a professional innovator. He's an inventor. He's got many, many different inventions. But he said something that really struck me. He said, I innovate as a last resort. I look at other industries first to see if I can take ideas from there. Then, if there isn't any, I innovate. These kind of initiatives, whether it's IBRI or coming together as AgriNovus, where we have cross-industry opportunities to see ideas that are already being implemented that may not be in your current sector, is a tremendous way to bring forward innovation into your area. This is a group from our employee base here that I would describe as a very diverse group. I need this group engaged, I need a bright representation, and I want a diverse workforce. We've got some challenges in this area, and I want to highlight. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of our merger. We're in the process of people selection. One of the sites that we're going to be drawing employees from is in Wilmington, Delaware, where DuPont has their current headquarters. I've had employees from that area come to Indianapolis, come on our site, very impressed by our site, like our culture, and turn us down. And they turned us down for a primary reason of what they perceive to be a state that's resistant to change. That's their perception. Whether it is or not, that's their perception. When that happens, that's a bad day for us. We lost somebody that we wanted from a talent standpoint. The other area that I want to highlight is I can't get this group from the universities today in Indiana. We go outside of Indiana to recruit, and one of the reasons we do that is to try to be able to reflect the group that's here. And I appreciate the comments that were made earlier, and I know we've got a university group that's working hard on this, but I believe this is a key reason why the initiative that AgriNovus is underway of looking at our talent, how important that is, and would ask that we put a real emphasis on how do we get minority students more attracted to agriculture. I need this help in order for us to have the workforce that we want to have to be able to compete in a global marketplace. Our employee base, over half of our employees are under 5 years of service in the company. We have over 20 languages spoken in our facility, and we've got 40 countries, estimated 40 countries that are represented on our campus. We have an employee group that's younger and more diverse than we've ever had in the history of our company. We need an environment and be able to provide an environment that they are attracted to and can thrive in for us to be able to compete in the global market. And let me close with this slide here, and I want to quote Norman Borlaug. And for those of you who may not be familiar with him, he's credited with leading the Green Revolution. He's also viewed by many as saving more lives in the world because of the increased food production that he's attributed to, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize. But I thought one of his quotes was quite fascinating. We always think of agriculture and the productivity growth to feed the world. And his comments, you can't build a peaceful world on empty stomachs and human misery. Higher food prices trigger violent riots. The 2007-2008 record high food prices actually prompted riots across 48 countries. So there's many, many positive things that happen to society when the topics that we've talked about today, that we're able to deliver on them. And I think that is a tremendous motivator for us to align on. So fostering innovation definitely feeds the world, but it also makes the world a safer place to live in. So I'll wrap up, Beth, and turn it back over to you with just this comment. To foster a future for innovation, it's important that we foster a global mindset for organizations in Indiana like ours to succeed through innovation in the global marketplace. Thank you for your time.